Hello, everybody, and good afternoon to you from this part of the world. So it may be good morning where you are. And as you may be able to tell, I'm traveling in the car with a sat nav. So hopefully, and no, I'm not driving. Don't worry, I'm not driving. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this another interesting, exciting, educational episode of True Temperance International Family Health Show. If it's your first time, you may have seen the phrase TT or the term TTI. That's who we are, True Temperance International. And we're so glad that you've taken the time to join us as we learn about today's topic, the fat controller. Okay, you may have heard of him in a little TV program. And mustn't forget our YouTube viewers. Thank you for joining us. Welcome again. So my name is Sharon, and I'm part of our TTI team. I am only the co-host because the host is.
Good afternoon, everyone. Your host is Shirley. Welcome to you all.
Not going to work.
No.
I'll try.
So as you can see, I do like to talk, but I will try my best to keep muted unless I need to talk. And if there's any of you joining us at this time, please can you mute your devices? And if we do ask you a question, though, we're cutting out, though, because I am traveling.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. So what we're going to do, good afternoon once again, everyone. Wherever you may be, it may be, as Sharon says, good morning, or it may be good evening. And we do thank you for joining us on our family health show, True Temperance International, aka as known as TTI. So before we start, our presenter today will be Lucille Fifield. She's no stranger. She's been with us for quite a number of shows. But before we have Lucille on, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go through the promos. Okay. So we're still on our series, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. And we chose this series because it's important for us to know our bodies, know internally, externally, how our bodies are made. So that is, we're continuing with our season 2, our series, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. So today we have Lucille Fifield, and she will be discussing with us about the fat controller. Not sure what this presentation is going to be about regarding this, but please stay tuned and she'll be with us soon. The fat controller. So before we start, we always have our disclaimer. So only a physician can diagnose, treat and prescribe for illness or disease. Any information disclosed or discussed at the TTI Zoom talk show is for educational and informational purposes only. Please continue to seek professional medical advice from your general practitioner regarding any illness or disease you may be suffering from. So within TTI, we have 3 groups. We have a spiritual health group, a men's wellness group, and a women's wellness group. And for each group, we talk about different, for the spiritual health, we'll start with the spiritual health. With this group, we have words of encouragement, we have prayer line, devotions are sent daily. So please join us if you like words of encouragement, if you like to read a devotion, if you have someone to pray for, even if it's for yourself or family member or friends, please join us there. On the men's wellness group and the women's wellness group is separated to do with the different health conditions to the gender. So we separated it. But with each one, we talk about the challenges that the presenters may give us, whether it's challenges, health issues, whatever it might be in terms of health and wellness. Please join us on these for men or women. So please take note of the URL, and I will try my best to upload it for those who are on Zoom for your first time. and welcome for your first time. I will put it on Zoom for you so that you can join us.
Charlene, also, I would like to add on that one, if you can hear me, hopefully I'm not breaking up. If you do want to join us on Telegram, you have to install the app on your device. So please remember, install the app, and then you can join us on these groups where we will keep you updated, share recipes, share encouragement. And if you have any questions that we've not necessarily covered on the live show, and we ran out of time, you can ask your health-related questions on that platform as well. And we'll do our best to answer.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for pointing that out for me. On the 20th of February, we have had, I think, three Sundays with, it was No Jab, No Job. Now, this one is Liberty, Conscience and Health with Dr. and Pastor Conrad Vine and Dr. and Pastor Sam Davis. This is between 4 and 6 UK time, where they would examine the recent threats to our liberty, our conscience, and our health. What is a Christian response at such a time as this? So please join a free event, and you have to register in advance on Zoom. So please visit ahreformers.com or email them ahreformers@gmail.com for more information. Okay, so we have Plan Easy. This will be starting next week, Sunday, session 1, breakfasts. And this is a cooking program, but it's not just a cooking program. It is on Zoom, but it's not just a cooking program. Janine, who will be your chef, will be looking at mood foods. Those who, especially with this time that we're living in now, some people are suffering with anxiety, depression, low in mood, stress. So Janine will be looking at mood foods, foods that will help to boost your mood, to help you feel happy, bring in that good serotonin levels, good for the gut, which will help in terms of your mood. So it's not just cooking, it's also educational when it comes to health. So please visit planeasy@icloud.com, email her or call Janine if you'd like to take part. I think the registration is Monday coming, Monday the 7th. So please book to learn more. Then we have Mercy's Door Health Ministry. This is with Louise. So you have 4 ladies on here who's no stranger, who's spoken on here plenty times, actually, quite a few times. So we have Dr. Louisa, we have Sonia, we have Joan, and we have Louise. And this is on the colon, gallbladder, and a liver flush program, 12-day cleanse, which starts on the 20th of Feb to the 3rd of March. So using juices, raw nutrition, and herbs to help with these 3 vital organs, I would say. So please contact Louise. Her telephone number is below for more information. Then we have TTIs. Well, not TTIs, but we're selling it from Pastor Sam Davis from his farm, Unicenta farm in southern Spain. Lovely olive oil, and for those who may have purchased it, lovely olive oil, very creamy, very different from the ones in the shops. But we only have quite a number. I think it's only about 5 we have left. So if you would like to get your hands on it, please contact TTI at ttinternational777@gmail.com if you would like to get your hands on the last few olive oils. And we just want to say thank you all for your support, whether it's through prayer, sharing with your friends and family, whether it's donations. We thank you all, even joining us now, that's still supporting us. So we thank you all for supporting us week by week. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And not last week, the week before, we had Joan Cornwall on with us, and she was going through the urinary system. Does anyone know who was on with us 2 weeks ago what the challenge was, or what we had to do in terms of to help this system? So this is your time. This will be the testimonial time. This is the time for discussion for a bit, for about maybe 5-10 minutes of the challenge that was set. So does anybody know what it was? Do I have to talk to myself? Anybody? Anybody know what the challenge was set by Joan?
I know there's a hand. John's got his hand up. He's been on for a while. I don't know if he knows the answer.
Do you know the answer, John? John? No. Thank you. Thank you, S. So I see, drink 6 to 8 glasses of water per day. So thank you. Yes, it is. Drink 6 to 8 glasses of water per day. Sharon, can you think of another one? Okay, I think there was another one.
Right, sorry, I'm just getting out of the car. And sorry, I was in another church this morning. Take care, God bless. Right, so yes, the other challenge was to do with corn silk. Because Sister Jones told us about the benefits of corn silk. And if you weren't sure, we were looking at the urinary system even. So maybe that's been a little bit of a reminder as to the challenges that was set. So did anybody try the corn silk or find out about it, or even manage to dry some out and taste the tea?
Okay, I think Sharon's reception is very low where she is. But what Sharon was saying was regarding the corn silk. Has anyone tried it? Did anyone manage to purchase it, dry it, use it? No, you're right, S. It's not corn season as yet in the UK. But has anyone ever tried corn silk before?
Hi, Shalene.
Hi, Audrey.
With me. I love corn like anything. And I have, during the season, I do try to get corn regularly. And I do use the corn silk. I do try and use it. Since I heard about it, I do try to use it. As far as the water is concerned, that's routine, having done CHIP programs, 6 to 8 glasses of water is normal for us. So I do drink, and it is very useful. It's really useful, and I recommend it to everybody. Even the corn silk, I do recommend. It's very good, and it's worth giving it a go. Thank you.
What do you do with the corn silk? I've not heard of that before.
I just boil it. I don't throw away the corn silk. I just put it in water and boil, and then put it aside to to steep, and then I drink the water. Very good.
Hello, this is Barbara from France.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you. I think it was Jean that came on. Is this Barbara?
Yes, from France. And just
Hi, Barbara.
Hello. Yes, just yesterday I came through an information that corn silk cleanses and supports the kidneys. So that's why I would like to share it.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. And it sure does. It does help with the kidneys, the corn silk. Someone that I know, dear to me, they suffer with kidney problems, and they use the corn silk, and there's even other herbs that you could use, like the uva ursi as well, that can help with the kidneys and for that urinary system. So yes, corn silk is really good
yes,
for the kidneys.
Yes, and the birch tree juice is also very good for the kidneys as well.
Which juice, sorry, Barbara?
Birch tree.
Birch tree, yes, birch
Okay.
tree.
Okay.
And there
We'll
was
look into that.
a pastor in Poland who had a very difficult problem with the kidneys, and his wife read about it, and she bought it, and he was completely healed after drinking this juice. But I don't know what was the duration of, how long he drank it, but yes, that's what she told me.
Thank you.
Can
So
you
someone
ask
said,
her to
I
put it
think it's
on? Can you ask her to put it on the chat? Because I didn't hear what she said. Something
Yes,
tree or whatever.
birch,
birch trees.
birch
Yes.
tree.
Oh, birch.
If you type it in the chat for us, please,
Please,
Barbara,
Sure,
that would
then
be helpful.
in case
Sure,
somebody else
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll put it on YouTube as well, if that's possible, Shirley. And I'm not sure. At some point, we'll put it on the YouTube chat. Okay, so astragala, thank you. I think this is either Lewis or Natalia.
Yes.
Astragalus is also very good for the kidneys. And some people are asking, what is corn silk? Now, you can go back onto our YouTube channel, because we forgot to mention that. TTI, we've got lots of programs on our YouTube channel. So you just need to type in True Temperance International on the YouTube search button or edit bar, and then you'll be able to find lots of our presentations. And the one last week, it was called Needs Water. So if you type in that, True Temperance International Needs Water, and then, or was it Needs Water in? Can't remember, one of those two. And you'll see the presentation from last week, and it explained so much more than we can say in 5 minutes, because it was a full presentation. But just for those of you who are unsure, corn silk is, when you get the corn and it's on the cob, so not corn shelled already, but corn on the cob, and then you take out the outer leaves, and inside you've got this silky kind of like thread. And you normally peel that off, cut off the brown bit, or take the whole lot off and throw it away. You don't realize such medicine that's in those threads, the corn silk. And so Sister Joan Cornwall was telling us in the presentation from 2 weeks ago, not last week, about the benefits in corn silk. So please go back and watch on the YouTube channel, True Temperance International and Needs Watering, I think it was called. So yeah.
Can I say something here, Sharon?
Yeah, sure. Sure,
Yeah.
of course you can, Audrey.
If you type corn silk on Google, it actually shows you the picture. Very clear. It just shows you what corn silk is. It's hanging on the corn itself. Yes, thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for your testimony as well, sharing how you've benefited from its use. Or yeah. It's and it doesn't taste, there's no horrible taste at all. It's, if you like water, you'll like corn silk tea. Right, so nobody tried the sorry, I was off, my signal wasn't so good. So did anybody try taking more water, increasing their water intake? I heard somebody say 6 to 8. Just to remind you, it's not 68, not a 6 and an 8, but 6 to 8 glasses of water. Okay, we are True Temperance. Okay, so I don't want anyone drowning in water because they heard it on this show that they had to have 68. No. Okay, some may say 8 to 10 glasses of water, and it is really, really beneficial. But a lot of people haven't come on to hear about water. Okay, although it is one of the health principles, a definite, they're all good. We want to hear from our friend and Lucille. So Lucille, are you available to speak and say hello? And if you are, before you dive into your presentation, I have one question for you.
Hi, Sharon. I'm available to speak. Had a little bit of technical issues, but it's all sorted now, especially with a bit of prayer.
Thank you. Right. So now, the last few times we've seen you on this platform, you were in a different location, a sunnier location, and now you've come back to, what shall I call it? a different part of the world.
Yes, indeed, indeed. I spent a few weeks, a couple of months, and well, nearly 3 months in the Caribbean. I had a little rest and I topped up my vitamin D. And in fact, a few people asked me to bring some sun back. And I did put some sun in the suitcase, but my suitcases were security checked and they removed it.
Oh no. Okay. Well, we'll have to try and do better next time, but that's okay. At least you had the right will. So my question to you, because I like to ask people a little bit about them so we can get to know you even better. So I'm going to ask you, what is it that you missed the most about being in the UK? And you're not allowed to say your sons. Okay.
What I miss about the UK?
What you missed about not being in the UK for that time you were in the Caribbean?
Okay, so when I was in the Caribbean, what did I miss about the United Kingdom? Well, I'll tell you what I missed is the fruits and the vegetables. So, because it's really amazing, surprising that in the Caribbean, you buy everything by pound. So if we wanted to buy a pineapple, and the pineapples grow in Jamaica, because we're in Jamaica, they weighed it by pounds. So a pineapple, which will cost £1 or 75 pence from Lidl or Aldi, if you went to Tesco's, probably cost about £1.25. In Jamaica would cost the equivalent of £4.50. And also in terms of vegetables as well, you know, they didn't have much choice of vegetables. They have the cabbage, the lettuce. You're lucky if you can get some callaloo. So it was quite difficult in terms of fruits and vegetables. I think the fruits and vegetables were very, very expensive. And I don't know how the local people live there, really. Whereas in England, you know, with fruits and vegetables are relatively cheap. And when you think about it, a lot of the fruits and vegetables we get are imported from overseas, but yet they are far cheaper than in the Caribbean. So that's one of the things that I miss, being able to go and buy the fruits and the vegetables fairly cheaply.
Okay, maybe it's to do with seasonal, because if it wasn't pineapple season, then I would expect it to be more expensive. I don't know, maybe it was pineapple season, but over in the Caribbean, there tends to be more seasonal fruits and vegetables. Whereas over here, we get things from all over the world at any time of the year. I know cherries have come out. They're not as nice at the moment. Give it a few more weeks, the cherries will be nice. Okay, so maybe that might have something to do with it. But welcome back. We're glad to have you on here. And we're looking forward to finding out a bit more about the Fat Controller. Charlene, is there anything you need to say before we go into this presentation?
No, I'm just trying to send the Telegram links to Zoom. Okay. So that's what I'm doing in the background. But no, nothing from me.
Thank you for holding up the technical fort. And
it's okay.
So if you have any questions whilst the presentation's going on, save them to the end, or you can type them in the chat and we'll have a little Q&A at the end as well. So at this point, we are going to hand over to Sister Lucille, and the microphone is yours. We'll stay on mute now.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. So what can you see? All right.
It was yellow, but now two men, one large, slightly larger than the other one.
Okay. All right. Just gonna, okay, that's it. So, you know, I've really been looking forward to doing this presentation. TTI have asked me a few times to do a presentation, and I thought about this quite a bit. And I felt inspired to share this presentation, and it's called, let's go back a bit, that's called The Fat Controller. And this title came to me, and I thought, I want to share this presentation with TTI. And I was really excited by pulling this presentation together, and the title came to me about the fat controller. And as we go into the presentation, I'm going to explain a little bit about the fat controller. So as Shirlene and Sharon has said, for those who do not know me, my name is Lucille Fifield. I'm the health director of Manor House. My background is that I'm a registered general nurse and a health visitor as well. I invited a few of my health guests who've come to Manor House, and those who came on the residential program now, I've got a little quiz for you. So health guests who would come to Manor House for a 7 or 10-day program, I would talk about perfect health. And in order to have perfect health, there's 3 things that you need. So this is a quiz. This is a test for those health guests who've been on the program. Can you remember the 3 things that you need in order to have perfect health? So you can comment here now. What 3 things? Are the people muted or can they speak, Sharon?
I did put them on mute, but I will release.
Just release them for a few moments.
Okay.
If they want to let us know, what 3 things do we need in order to have perfect health? And I give you a couple of moments, and if no one's coming forward, I'm just going to fly on.
Water, sun, and food?
No, they contribute to perfect health, but those aren't the 3 things that we need in order to have perfect health. So in order to have perfect health, these 3 things you need to have perfect circulation. You need to have temperance, and that we're talking about true temperance. And I know in the past, TTI has talked about true temperance, and we need to have love, joy, and hope. And if you put them together, you saw mention water and plant-based food. So perfect circulation, in order to have perfect circulation, the things that contribute to perfect circulation is the plant-based food, the water, the proper dress, the sunshine. In order to have true temperance, we have to avoid everything that is harmful and use carefully those things which are helpful. And the love, joy, and hope part is our relationships with God and our relationships with each other. And this is the basis of this presentation and all the other presentations that we do at Manor House. Now, I know that TTI have given a disclaimer, but I would also like to share this disclaimer as well. The information that is about to be presented is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your doctor or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or medications. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard or read. All right, so we're talking about the fat controller. So what comes to your mind when you think of fat? Do you think of obesity? Yeah. So the title of this presentation is called The Fat Controller. So those of you who were brought up or being raised in the UK may be very familiar with the fat controller. Here's a fictional character in a series of books called the Railway series books. So most of British children growing up in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s and 90s will remember Thomas the Tank Engine. Yes. So the fat controller is the boss man, the manager who oversees the railway station, the times and timetable. Now, today we're talking about today we're not talking about Thomas the Tank Engine, but we're talking about fat. In particular, we're talking about excess fat. And what we are going to be talking about is how fat controls and influences our body, not just our physical, but also our emotional being as well. The love, joy, and hope aspect of it. And we're going to talk about how it operates and can contribute to an even cause or death. So essentially, there are 5 parts to this presentation. So what we're going to do over the next hour or so, I'm hoping to keep it into an hour, we're going to look at what is obesity, and we're going to look at its prevalence, how much obesity is there. And we're primarily looking at the UK, because that's where I'm based. That's where our health guests are based as well. So we're looking at its prevalence in the UK. We're going to talk about some facts about obesity. We're going to look at, has the Bible got anything to say about fat and obesity? And we're going to look at some of the diseases caused by excess fat. And the most important part of the presentation really is how to eliminate excess fat. And then at the end, we're going to look at the challenge. As in TTI, they always have a challenge for their audience. So today we're going to have a challenge as well. So let's start talking about fat. Do you know this lady? Yeah, write in the chat if you know this lady. Yes, she's very, very famous, and she's won numerous singing and acting awards, even while she was overweight. But for some reason, she decided to eliminate weight. That's what she decided to do. All right, so she looks great now, doesn't she? All right, she's poured herself into this dress. The dress is so tight on her, but she looks good. What about this lady? Do we all know her? Yes, Adele. Look at her body language. What is her body language telling you? Look at her with her hands. She says to me, this is a person who feels uncomfortable in her own skin. Yeah. Okay. And Adele, she decided to eliminate weight. Look at her now, totally transformed, isn't she? Now, I've got a little quiz for you. The next person, and this is for the first person who gives the name of the next person. I'm going to show a picture of a man, and the person that gives me the name of the next person will win a gift, the gift of the Ministry of Healing, and I'll post it to you. And if you've got the Ministry of Healing already, think about someone you know who would benefit for it. So I'm going to share the picture of the next person, and I would like you to tell me who this person is. Does anyone know? If you do, write his name in the chat as quickly as possible. So I can't see the chat, so I'm relying on TTI to let me know if someone's put the person's name in the chat.
They did, Lucille. Rob put it first, Sam Davis.
That's
and
right.
Everyone else.
That's Pastor and Dr. Sam Davis. And
some have said TD Jakes.
And this we missed him. Okay, just gone too fast. Okay. All right. And this is Sam Davis now. Totally transformed. Looks a picture of health, doesn't he? So we've looked at all these 3 people. They had excess weight. They decided to eliminate weight for whatever reasons. Oftentimes people like Jennifer Hudson or Adele, they want to lose weight because they look better with an excess weight. So we've got another gentleman here. Many people may not know him. Some people who've come on the program may know this gentleman. So this is Joe Cross. And in 2005, he weighed 22 stones and he suffered from an autoimmune condition called chronic urticaria. Now, he had been taking medications for chronic urticaria for some times, and he spent his 30s trying traditional and non-traditional medicine to solve his illness. And he unsuccessfully tried various diets in fits and starts. Now, Joe Cross was a smoker, and he is an Australian. He consumed alcohol regularly. And his diet, his daily diet, mainly consisted of processed foods and meat. Now, Joe believed that his eating habits had caused his illness, and he wanted to change his lifestyle. He wanted to get off the medication, as he believed that they were not able to cure his condition. So you know what Joe Cross did? Some of you may have seen his documentary. So in 2005, when he was 35 years old, he decided to consume juice for 60 days. That's what Joe Cross did when he was 39, consumed juice for 60 days. Later on in this presentation, we'll learn what happened to Joe Cross. So let's look at fat, yes? How do we know if we are normal or have excess fat? Now, the measure that health professionals have been using for more than 100 years is the body mass index, or BMI. Many of us are familiar with the BMI. So the BMI helps to decide whether people are overweight or underweight. So they use this simpler formula. So the BMI is weight, usually in kilograms, divided by height squared. So the formula was developed by the Europeans in the 1830s, a long time ago. Now, there are 5 categories. So as you can see on your screen, you've got those who are less than 18.5, they're considered underweight. Normal is considered between 18.5 and 24.9. And then anything over normal is I class as excess fat. So 25 to 29.9 is overweight, 30 to 34.9 is obese, and anything over 35 is extremely obese, or some people call it morbidly obese. Now, the BMI has some flaws. It was developed by Europeans, based on Europeans, and sometimes it doesn't always pick up some of these ethnic differences. So, for instance, Eastern Asians, people of Chinese origin, they tend to be much slighter and have a lower BMI than the Europeans, whereas people of African descent tend to have a higher BMI. But as a rule, the BMI is a useful tool to use, and it's accepted worldwide when looking at populations. So let's look at the prevalence and the rates of excess fat. So the Health Survey of England, and this was in 2019, realized that overweight, and remember overweight is anything with a BMI over 25 to 29.9, has increased from 54% to 64% in 25 years, while obese, which is a BMI of 30 to 34.9, has nearly doubled. It's increased from 15% to 28%. Another measure that we also use to look at people's levels of excess fat is the adult average waist measurement. And in those 26 years, what they found is that women's waists have increased by 7 centimeters. I've certainly noticed that when I go to look at clothing in shops, previously, you know, the waist used to fit you, but now when you buy the same size clothing, the waist tends to be bigger, and you may have to take in the waist so that it fits you. So I certainly notice it, that many clothes, the waistline is too big while the hip is too tight. So during those 26 years, women's waists have increased by 7 centimeters and men have increased by 5 centimeters. Our waistlines have increased. Now, very high waist circumference is taken to be anything that is above 102 centimeters for men. And for women, it's anything above 88 centimeters. So on the top, the red ones is women. So, and below it is men in the turquoise. So this is a measurement, your waist measurement is something you can do. You can measure your waistline and plot it. And if it's increasing, it's an indication that things are going in the wrong direction. So we're going to look at who is affected by excess fat. And this information is again taken from the Health Survey 2019, and it was presented in a briefing paper to the House of Commons on the 12th of January 2021. So let's look at some facts. Who's affected by fat? The Health Survey for England estimates that 32.2% of people are overweight, but not obese. Yeah. So that's a BMI between 25 and 29.9%. So they classify that as overweight. A further 28% of adults in England are obese. And again, obesity is usually defined as having a body mass index above 30. So which sex has the most fat? Is it male or female? Have a guess. Which ones do you think have the most excess fat? Well, is there any comments in the chat? Well, the survey found that men are more likely than women to be overweight or obese. So 68.2% of men and 60.4% of women are obese. And the people aged 45 to 74 are most likely to be overweight or obese. So if you are in that age range, you're going to have more of a tendency to be overweight or obese. So which ethnic group do you think carries the most excess fat? All right, so what comments? Put something in the chat. Which ethnic group do you think have the most obesity and overweight? Have we got any comments in the chat?
There are. Let me have a look, Lucille. Someone says white, someone says black.
Okay, yes, well, it's close. It's black people have the highest rates of excess fat, and white British follow black people. So yes, so both you're very correct. So it's black people followed by the white British. Which ethnic group has the least excess fat? And we can all guess it's the Chinese. Also, the evidence also suggests that the higher the education level of people, or the more qualifications you have, the more likely you will be to have a normal weight. So let's look at the effects of excess fat. Elevated or excess fat, being overweight and obese, isn't just linked to heart failure. Having excess fat actually causes heart failure. A normal BMI, as I said, is from 18 to 24.9. But for every 1 point of increase in BMI over 30, so if you go 31, 32, the incidence of heart failure goes up by 17% in overweight people. And this is according to a large-scale international study of over 200,000 people that was published in 2013. Heart failure and excess weight has long been attached at the hip or stomach in medical research findings. And in this research, Swedish scientists were finally able to confirm that being overweight does in fact cause heart failure. So this doctor, his name is Dr. Stephen Becker, he says for every pound of weight we put on above the BMI of 30 is an additional 5 miles of extra blood vessels your body has to make. So if your heart beats 100,000 times a day, that's 500,000 miles a day for 1 pound of fat. So excess fat above a BMI of 30 causes heart failure. What else does excess fat do? So we're looking at a picture of the liver. So this all too common type of liver disease is caused by accumulation of fat in the liver. You can, in that picture, you can see the fat particles in that liver. So fatty liver is long associated with obesity and an increased risk of heart disease. So what they call this, they call it non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it affects up to 24% of the general population, and it can lead to serious health conditions like cirrhosis and liver cancer. Patients with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease may experience fatigue and abdominal discomfort. I remember years ago that my mother, she had a very, very good friend at work, and she was a portly lady. And within a week, it appeared that she became suddenly sick. She went into hospital. They transferred her to a liver specialist unit, and they said that her liver had failed and that she had cirrhosis of the liver. They didn't mention it was non-alcoholic fatty liver. They just said her liver failed, cirrhosis of the liver. And before she could get a liver transplant, within a week, she had died. And that always perplexed me. And I was much younger at the time, but now I know that what this lady experienced is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. All right, so let's look what else excess fat can cause. So given the new finding that fat can cause heart failure, it shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us that fat has also been linked to high blood pressure. And I think I did a presentation about high blood pressure. That's right, I did. It was, I think, a silent assassin. Yes, so if we have excess fat in our bodies, then our arteries and our veins will be lined with atherosclerotic plaques, which will cause the heart to beat higher, harder, and cause higher blood pressure. Fatty foods, so if we eat a meal with a lot of fat in it, it's also been linked to high blood pressure because these foods causes a narrowing of arteries. So high fat foods also cause people to have higher cholesterol levels, and they consume extra calories that can lead to atherosclerosis, which is thickening of the arterial walls with plaque. And it just doesn't happen in the coronary arteries, it happens to every artery, even the arteries that leads to the brain. So what else? So this is a kidney. Yeah, so this is a kidney that you see. So fat around the kidneys is a good thing because it helps protect the kidneys. Remember, the kidneys are just at the back, and having a little bit of fat around the kidneys will protect it from injury. So though body fat, also called adipose tissues, encapsulates, covers the kidneys for protections, and it helps to hold them in place, and excess of this fat can increase the risk of kidney disease. Joan talked about the kidneys last week, yes? So let's add a little bit more. Especially, it's worsened for those people with diabetes and high blood pressure. So according to a journal, it's the Journal of American Society of Nephrology, kidney disease is responsible for 31.1% more of premature deaths among people with type 2 diabetes than those with just diabetes. So we're looking at the effects of excess fat. Wow, it doesn't stop, does it? Here's some more effects of excess fat. So, metabolic syndrome, belly fat, insulin, and type 2 diabetes, they're all interrelated. So, increased body mass index, especially over 30, you have an increased risk of diabetes. So the risk of developing diabetes is far greater than was previously thought. So obesity can cause insulin levels to spike and increase your risk of diabetes. So previous research has found that the accumulation of belly fat can lead to insulin resistance, which causes large fluctuations in blood sugar. And I know that Dr. Louisa, she talked about diabetes on TTI previously. So if you want to know a bit more about that, just look at that video. Okay, so it doesn't stop there. The effects of fat, how fat controls our body. So it affects the breasts. There is a strong link between breast cancer, fat, and estrogen. So after menopause, most of women's estrogen production comes from fat tissue rather than from ovaries. So if a woman is overweight and has extra fat tissue, she will also have high levels of estrogen, which can fuel the growth of breast and uterine tumors. So it can increase fibroids as well. So heavier women are more likely to die from breast cancer because of their higher estrogen levels. Additionally, the types of fats women eat can have an impact on their breast cancer mortality risks. So diets that include a lot of high-fat dairy products have been linked to a 49% increased risk of dying from breast cancer. All right, it doesn't stop. Fat is also linked, excess fat is also linked to sleep disorders. So the more fat we gain, the more our sleep disorders increase. Being overweight puts people at a greater risk of sleep apnea, which leads to sleep issues like snoring and daytime drowsiness. So people do not have a full sleep because during the night, because of the weight on their chest, it stops their lungs fully expanding. The oxygen level decreases and they wake up during the night, but not fully. Okay, and the next one we're going to look at is visceral fat. So visceral fat wraps around your abdomen and all your organs deep inside your body. Oftentimes, you can't always feel it or see it. In fact, you may have a pretty flat tummy. So many people, they're thinking, you know what, I'm fine, I'm really, really slim. But you can have visceral fat, which is not seen. So we're going to talk a little bit more about visceral fat. So what you see there on the screen is some where you have subcutaneous fat, that's the fat underneath the skin, and then the fat that's underneath the muscle is the visceral fat. So too much of any body fat is bad for your health, but compared to the fat that lies underneath your skin, that's the subcutaneous fat, the visceral fat is more likely to raise your risk for serious medical issues. So they talk about the metabolic syndrome, so cardiovascular disease, heart disease, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, stroke, high cholesterol, are just some of the conditions that are strongly linked to too much fat in your abdomen. So we see the sign there, TOFI, T-O-F-I. That stands for thin on the outside, fat on the inside. So let's look at TOFI. On one side, you clearly see someone that is large. They've got quite a bit. So the yellow bit on this one here, can you see it here? The yellow bit, which is just under the skin, that's the subcutaneous fat. So they've got quite a bit of fat on their hips. They've also got quite a significant amount of visceral fat in the abdomen. This gentleman here hasn't got much subcutaneous fat at all. That's a woman, in fact, much subcutaneous fat at all. But if you look here, they have quite a bit of visceral fat. So these are 2 MRI scans here. And you can see one looks slim, the other looks large, but both have visceral fat. So let's look at some other. These are 2 men. They're similar aged, similar BMI, body mass index, and they have the same percentage of body fat. But where that body fat lies will predispose one to disease and another won't have as much disease. So this gentleman here has 5.86 liters of visceral fat, internal fat in his abdomen. This gentleman here has 1.65 liters. So here are some organs. This is the abdomen, the intestines. Oh, you can't see the markers. Okay. And then here's a healthy fat. And then the next one, look at the other fat, other heart, full of visceral fat. So in Britain, we have the National Child Measurement Programme. And so what many of you know that children in year group 1 and 6, which is year 1 or reception is classes 4 to 5, and year 6 is ages 10 to 11, they weigh the children. And what they're finding in the United Kingdom, in our children, almost a quarter of British children are overweight by the time they start primary school, with obesity reaching its highest peak among older children. About 11% of 4 to 5-year-olds are obese. Now, if you are obese as a child, you have a 70% chance of becoming an obese adult. 12% of toddlers remain are overweight. In fact, some toddlers cannot sit and cross their legs because they are so overweight. Our children are the litmus paper of society's future health. So they're looking, this slide looks at the effects of excess fat on children. I'm going to quickly go through them. So the brain, the fat increases production of stress hormones, making socializing and exercising less appealing. The fat around the heart increases the risk of heart attack and narrow arteries. The muscles become streaked and underdeveloped. The fat in the liver triggers insulin resistance and lead to diabetes. The pancreas, there's increased risk of pancreatic cancer as well as diabetes. If any fat is pumped into the bloodstream from the liver, it can lead to strokes or DVTs, deep vein thrombosis. There's an increased risk of intestinal and colon cancer because the fat around, the visceral fat, presses on the large and small intestines and slows down that digestion as well. And the fat squeezes the organs and causes the blood pressure to rise. So it's really important that we address this issue of excess fat for our children as well as adults. So did you know that having extra belly fat, that visceral fat, could be linked to a shrinking brain? Shrinking brain is associated with dementia and Alzheimer. So this is according to a study recently published. They found that people who had excess fat, they looked at the waist to hip ratio, they found that there was a higher association, or they had less gray matter in the brain. And they believe that there's strong links between obesity and shrinkage in specific regions of the brain. So what they found is that higher levels of all obesity measures were related to lower gray matter volume. So that's a bit about the facts about fats and how it impacts our health. Now let's talk a little bit about what is fats. So fats are called fatty acids or lipids. Fats in our body are made up of 3 molecules. I'm not going to go too much into the chemistry and science behind it. So they're made up of 3 molecules joined together. And these 3 molecule structure is called triglyceride. And you may have heard that mentioned when you've gone for your blood test, and your doctor may talk about your triglyceride levels. So most of the fat we need is made by our bodies, but there are some fats our body cannot make. So let's look at some facts about fat. Are all fats created equal? So we know a small amount of fat is essential, part of a healthy, balanced diet. Fat is a source of essential fatty acids which the body cannot make itself. So we need fats to help the body absorb vitamin A. These are fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, and E. Any fat that's not used by your body cells or turned into energy is converted into body fat. Likewise, if we have too much carbohydrates and protein, they are also converted into body fats. All types of fat are high in energy. So if you have a gram of fat, whether it is saturated or unsaturated fat, it provides about 9 kilocalories of energy compared with carbohydrate or protein, which provides about 4 calories. So let's talk about cholesterol and saturated fat. So cholesterol is a fatty substance that is mostly made by the body in the liver. Yeah, so our liver makes cholesterol. It's carried in the blood as low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein. However, eating too much saturated fat, so our body makes cholesterol, which is, we need it. There's nothing wrong with cholesterol. It's when we have too much cholesterol by eating food, especially saturated fats in our diet, which can raise the bad or LDL, low density lipoprotein. I call LDL the lethal fat. LDL, lethal fat. So eating too much saturated fats can raise cholesterol in your blood, which can increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. So people talk about good fats or good cholesterol or bad cholesterol, but the research is still emerging. And what the research is saying, regardless if it's LDL, low density lipoprotein, or bad fats, or HDL, high density lipoproteins, or high fats, we should really minimize the fats in our diet. So let's look at the fats again, continue with fats. There are 3 main types of fats in your food. You can have saturated fats. These tend to come from animal foods. You can have unsaturated fats, and these come from plant foods. And you can have trans fats, and these come from commercially prepared processed foods. So trans fats includes things like margarine. So margarine can be made from vegetable oils. It can be made from animals. For instance, remember, they used to make margarine from whale blubber back in the day. And even, can you believe it? They used to make margarines, trans fats from petroleum, from petrol. But they discontinued this practice, not because it was unhealthy for us, but the process of making it was too expensive. Today, chemists in the food manufacturing companies, they take vegetable oils, they hydrogenate it. In other words, they put a hydrogen atom in it so that it becomes saturated fats. So essentially, these fats are manufactured and not recognized by the body. So what sometimes they do, they take the plant fats, which are unsaturated, they process them and they become trans fat, which become harmful to our bodies. So let's look at saturated fats. So saturated fats are found in many foods, both sweet and savory. So we're going to look at some foods that are high in saturated fat. So we've got fatty cuts of meat products included sausages and pies. We've got butter and we've got ghee. We've also got lard and cheese. Many of us struggle with cheese. Cheese is saturated fats from animals, especially hard cheese like cheddar, cream, sour cream, and ice cream. And some savory snacks like cheese crackers and some popcorns, they all have a lot of saturated fats or trans fats in them. Also, you'll be surprised to know that palm oil and coconut oil have saturated fats. You can easily tell if a fat is saturated. So what you need to do, get your oil, leave it at room temperature, and if it goes solid, it is a saturated fat. If it remains liquid, it's more likely to be unsaturated. All we need to remember is that saturated fats are the ones that cause heart disease and cholesterol formation. So moving on quickly, let's look about the Bible. Has the Bible got anything to say about fat? And has the Bible got any guidance for us about fat? So the Bible talks about some of the sanctuary services, and it gives us plain instructions about fat. So when they were having the sacrificial, going through the sacrificial processes, and they had the animals, they sacrificed them, instruction was given about what to do with the blood and what to do with the fat. And it says in this scripture that the priest should burn the fat upon the altar. Yes. It shall be a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings, a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings, that you eat neither fat nor blood. So the Bible prohibits the eating of blood and the eating of fat. Okay, so let's look at some more scripture. Again, it says in Leviticus 7:22-24, you shall eat no manner of fat of any of the animals, ox, sheep, or goat, and the fat of the beast that dieth of itself, and the fat of that which is torn with beasts. You can use it in any other way, but you shall not eat the fat. So God gave us clear instructions, Jehovah gave us clear instructions that we should not eat fat. And it goes on to say that any person that ate the fat, that person shall die. And the word for die was karaf, which means destroyed, consumed, be chewed, perish, as in disease. So let's move on quickly. Let's look at some stories about fat in the Bible. Many of you will be familiar with Eli, the priest, and he had two sons called Hophni and Phinehas. And what they would do when the people came to sacrifice, rather than waiting for the people to cut the fat off the animal and burn it, the priest's sons, Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, they sent their servants and said, look, we want the meat before it's roasted. We want it with a fat still on it. It says, give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. And what they did, they said, thou shalt give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force. And the Bible goes on to say, wherefore the sin of the young men, Hophni and Phinehas, was very great before the Lord, because they were disrespecting God's sacrificial system, but also they were eating the fat from the animals. If we move on in the story of Eli and his sons, and if you read it in the Bible in 1 Samuel 4, Eli, his sons were killed, the ark of the temple was taken, and when the news was taken to Eli, he heard it, he was shocked, he fell backwards, and he died. And the Bible said, Eli fell off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died, for he was old and heavy. So what the story is telling us, that Eli was also eating the fatty flesh meat that his sons were demanding from the people of Israel. Does the Bible talk about visceral fat? Indeed it does. And this is a very gruesome story. It's found in Judges 3:17. It's about the killing of a morbidly obese man. And it's mentioned here, I'm not going to go through the whole story due to time. And this man was stabbed in the stomach, and it said the fat closed upon the blade so that he could not draw the dagger out of his belly. So the Bible recognizes visceral fat. And it also talks about the children of Israel and how they ate meat to excess. In fact, there was 1 month they demanded meat, and God gave it to them, not because he wanted them to have it, but because they demanded it. They were crying for meat. So God gave them this meat. And it says that they ate meat, not 1 day, not 2 days, not a week, not 2 weeks, but a whole month they were eating meat. And at the end of the month, they became so sick of eating this fatty food that they died. Okay. So this is some of the information that the Bible tells us about fat. And there's other things that the Bible talks about in terms of fat. So the Bible has guidance for us that we should not eat fat from animals at all. But let's move on. I want to talk about obesity and COVID-19. So let's bring it down to the present. Now, according to the BMJ, and this was published in March 2021, the UK's death rate from COVID-19 is the 5th highest globally out of the world. 5th highest. And you know the reason why it was the 5th highest? It was largely due to the high number of people living with obesity and excess weight. In the UK, around 30% of COVID-19 hospitalizations are directly attributed to overweight and obesity. The research shown, and this is compelling and it's found across other countries as well, the research found that people with excess weight represent 77% of all critically ill COVID-19 patients. And this is a slide of how the obesity affects the whole body, and I've touched on a few of those aspects of it. Essentially, though, it talks about obesity and outcomes in COVID-19 when an epidemic and pandemic collide. So the epidemic is an epidemic of obesity, and the pandemic was COVID. When these two things collided, and then what we found is that those people who had excess weight were the ones who suffered more when it came with the COVID infection. Obesity causes inflammation throughout the body. Obesity weakens the body's ability to fight off infection. So these factors, coupled with the adverse effect of obesity On the lungs, remember we talked about those people with apnea, are the most likely reasons why obesity increases the risk of contracting more severe COVID-19 disease. We know this gentleman, don't we? Yes, Boris Johnson. He's currently fighting for his political life. A few months ago, he was fighting for breath and his life after he was struck down with corona. Yes, fortunately, he recovered and he lived to tell the tale of the fact that obesity and COVID does not go well together. As a result of that, and soon after that, an obesity paper was published. Yeah, a strategy, how to address the British obesity epidemic. And that was published in July 2020. But do you know, it's the 14th government obesity strategy since 1992. 14 obesity papers, you know, government departments writing these papers. But despite 689 policies introduced in the last 29 years, rates of overweight and obesity have increased from 53 to 68%. Boris is a great role model, a guy who says, do what I say and not what I do. So the question is, how do we eliminate weight? How do we eliminate weight? So we're moving on to the end of the presentation. First of all, language, yes, and we're looking at it according to how to achieve perfect health. We're going to look at perfect circulation, we're going to look at true temperance, and then we're going to look at love, joy, and hope. So language is crucially important. The Bible tells us death and life are in the power of the tongue. So what we speak is important. It is so important. We can speak life or we can speak death. We can speak life over someone or we can speak death over someone. We can speak life over ourselves or we can speak death over ourselves. Question, who likes losing things? If you lose your purse, what do? You look for it. If you lose your phone, you look for it. You lose your house keys or your car keys, what do? You look for it. Even if you lose your child, you're frantically searching for it. So in Luke 15, Jesus tells 3 consecutive parables about people who had lost something. The parable of a sheep that was lost out of 100 sheep, and how the shepherd leaves the 99 sheep secure in the pen to search for that lost sheep. Jesus tells the parable of the woman having 10 silver coins. She loses one. She searches high and low, turns on the lamp, and she goes around looking for that one lost coin. And then the final parable is about the lost son who couldn't wait initially to leave his father's house and enjoy the house life, the high life. Eventually, after spending everything he has, he becomes destitute. He comes to his right mind and returns to his father's house. 3 parables. In each of those parables, something was lost. And when it was found, what did they do, the people who found it? There was great rejoicing. There was a party. The lady called her neighbors in. Look, come on in, have a party with me. I found my coin that I lost. So equally, if you lose weight, or you say, I've lost weight, we are programming our mind to find that which was lost. So invariably, if you say, I'm losing weight, you're going to go out and find that weight. So language is crucially important. We do not speak about losing weight, but we speak about eliminating excess weight. We go on an elimination program. We don't have a diet. We go on a program. And it's not a program just for a period of time, just to get into a wedding dress or to look good in that situation. This is a program for life. So that's one of the first things. Look at our language and what we say. So we need to change the language that we speak. And there's more to it, but due to time, we can't cover it all in this presentation. I'm just going to briefly touch on NICE, and NICE is it stands for National Institute of Clinical Evidence. Is it National Institute of Clinical Evidence? So NICE guidance, it recommends, this is what they give for the doctors and clinicians and health professionals. So the NICE guidance recommends lifestyles measures alone. That's what they say. That's all we should be doing. There are some things that they may prescribe. They may say lifestyle measures with orlistat. Do you know what orlistat is? That's the fat pill. You take it, you have a meal, you take it, and then what it does, it stops you absorbing the fat. And so if you eat too much fat, you can have anal leakage and fat coming out. And you may embarrass yourself. If you eat too much fat, you take the tablet, you can end up with anal leakage. But as in all medication, all drugs, there are side effects. One of those is anal leakage, but also it can interfere with the absorption of certain minerals. Remember, I meant vitamins. Remember, I mentioned the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. So if you're on the orlistat drug, it can also affect. You would have to take a supplement as well, multivitamin supplement. They do suggest bariatric surgery, but that is for the extreme, and there's a high risk of serious, even death if you have bariatric surgery. Okay, so this is a nice guidance, a nice pathways. They recommend diet, physical activity, and avoiding alcohol. Yes, those are the things that it recommends. So, so they encourage everyone to follow a plant-based whole food diet that is mainly based on vegetables, fruits, beans, pulses, and whole grains. We eliminate empty calories or non-foods, and non-foods are like fried food, biscuits, savory snacks, sweets, drinks made with full fat milk or cream. Avoid fast and takeaway foods. Yes, eat breakfast, but do not, well, they don't mention this. Let's go on. I'm just going to go on. How to eliminate excess fat. We're looking at perfect circulation. So here's a quote written in 1896. It says, meat is served reeking with fat because it suits the perverted taste. Both the blood and the fat of the animal is consumed as luxury. But the Lord has given special direction that these should not be eaten. Why? Because their use would make a diseased current of blood in the human system. Disregard of the Lord's special directions has brought many diseases upon human beings. So essentially, we need to be eliminating dead animal flesh from our diets. We shouldn't be eating animals at all because of the fat. So even if you cut off all the different the fat from the animal, there is still fat within the muscle as well. So let's look at some of the foods that we can be eating. Unsaturated fats, which are liquid at room temperature, are considered beneficial fats because they can improve blood cholesterol levels. They can ease inflammation. They can stabilize heart rhythms, and they play a number of other beneficial roles. So unsaturated fats are predominantly found in foods from plants, such as vegetable oils, nuts, and seeds. And if you have a lot of excess fat, what I would recommend is not to eat free-flowing oil. All right, I know on this program we recommend the use of olive oil, but if you're morbidly obese, if you have a BMI over 30, then I would recommend just use the olive oil within the olives, the unsaturated fats within the seeds, the pumpkin seeds, the sunflower seeds, the flax seeds. Those are really, really good. The oils within the avocados as well. Use those the oils in their natural forms rather than having free flowing oil. So let's move on. So we're looking at how to eliminate excess fat. One of the things which is so vitally important is water. We've talked about water so many times on this program. So many people find it difficult to drink water. We shouldn't be drinking anything else except water unless we're having teas in the form of medicine. So herbal teas in the form of medicine. So we should be drinking water, and we should drink it according to our body weight. And there's a simple formula. It's 47 mils for each kilogram of body weight to a maximum of 4 liters. So we need to be drinking water regularly and steadily throughout the day. We need exercise, and it's important that we exercise after our meals. So we have a meal, then we go for a digestive walk, and that helps with the insulin metabolism as well. It helps with the carbohydrate metabolism, and you won't have to draw on as much insulin to metabolize the carbohydrates. So have that digestive walk at least 15 minutes after your meal. And in fact, on the programs, when we have the residential programs, we say to people, if you're not prepared to go out and do the exercise walk, digestive walk, or do any other form of exercise, then you shouldn't be eating. So we should associate exercise and with our meals. Have a meal and then exercise. Also, it's important to dress for health. So if we have a lot of visceral fat around our organs, do not put tight belts around our bodies. At the moment, people especially women, put on these things that squeeze everything inside. And this is increasing the risk of pressing that visceral fat on the internal organs and increases the blood pressure. It reduces the natural movement of the intestines as well, and also avoiding tight things around your waist. So wear clothes that are loose around the abdomen as well. Fresh air is also important when we're thinking about eliminating weight. So if we're having a meal, then we're exercising, it's always best to go outside and exercise, regardless of the weather. It was raining today, but still we went out, we dressed appropriately, we went out and we went walking as well. And also sunshine is also important. And I'm not talking about vitamin D here, I'm talking about sunshine, because cholesterol lies under your skin, and the action of the sun on your skin converts that cholesterol to that vitamin D. It's important when we go out, and I know people of certain ethnic groups, they tend not to expose themselves to the sun too much. We tend to cover ourselves, or even in the hot, when it's sunshiny weather. It's important for us to expose our body to the sunshine so that we're able to convert that cholesterol that is underneath our skin to vitamin D. Now, if we have issues with a fatty liver, it's important for us to do some hydrotherapy. And one of the hydrotherapy that is really effective is a liver fermentation. This is a health guest who's had having a liver fermentation in Manor House. One health guest, we had one lady, she had a liver fermentation, and she said, I'm no longer going to call it a liver fermentation. I'm going to call it a liver transplantation, because after she had that therapy, she felt totally different. There was an improvement in her health. The burping that she was experiencing subsided significantly. So that is looking at perfect circulation. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to fly through the last remaining slide. So we're going to look at temperance. And this is the hardest one, because oftentimes we get excess fat because we have been intemperate. So the Bible tells us, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. Our habits of eating and drinking show whether we are of the world or among the those who are working to be more like Christ. So temperance is about avoiding everything that is harmful and using wisely those things which are helpful. So another lovely scripture here is found in Proverbs 23, 1-3. It says, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you. So look at the table, what is presented before you. And put a knife to your throat if you are a man given to appetite. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. And it's not literally putting a knife to your throat, but we need to implement temperance, control in what we are eating as well. And due to time, I have to fly through these next few slides. We have to deny ourselves, our appetites, change our wrong habits to right habits. And how to do this? And this is about surrendering daily. And it says in Luke 9:23, we have to deny ourselves and take up our Christ's cross daily and follow him. I want to share another quote with you. The demon of intemperance is of a giant strength, and it is not easily conquered. It is of a giant strength and hard to overcome. But the Bible gives us a solution how to overcome intemperance. And this is shared in a story in Matthew 17, and it's found in Matthew 17, it's verses 14-21. And it's about a person who was had mental health issues, or they said it's devil possession. And the disciples tried to exorcise the demon, and they weren't able to do so. And they brought the man to Jesus, and Jesus was able to heal this young man. And the disciples wondered, why couldn't we do it? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. I think about that in terms of eliminating weight. We have to have faith when we want to eliminate weight, excess weight. If you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, remove hence to yonder, and it shall be removed, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. And here is the crux of the matter. This kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. So the solution to excess weight and taking control of our intemperance is fasting. How and when we eat, we need to fast. And on the programs, on the residential programs at Manor House, we go into great detail about the different types of fasting. But due to time, I'm not able to go into it. And then the last area we're looking at, how to eliminate excess fat, is love, joy, and hope. And again, the solution here is about learning. And this is about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is what Paul talks about. He said, I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I have learned both to be full and be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's a learned behavior. And again, we talk about these things and we develop these things in more detail on the programs. So I'm just going to go through these quickly. There's other things that we can do. We've got the Mind Over Desire program. And this is a book that was 12 sessions on it, where groups of people come who have issues with intemperance, with excess weight. They come together, they support each other on the they support each other, and they go through the Mind Over Desire program. And there's another book I also recommend, is The Power of Hope, and that's freely available online. And that book is written by Julia Melgoza and Melchison Boges. So I'm coming towards the end. Remember Joe Cross, who weighed 22 stones and suffered from various diseases? Remember, Joe was a smoker. He consumed alcohol regularly. His daily diet consisted of barbecues and processed meat. And remember at the beginning, I said when he was 39 years old, he decided to consume only juice. He fasted on juice for 60 days. He was desperate to change his life, to change his health, to improve it. So let's find out what happened to him. Okay. It's taking a little bit of time. So this is Joe. Now, after 60 days living on pure juices, living on nature's finest ingredients. Oh, I need my power charger, please. Yeah, it's in the office. Yeah, after 60 days living on pure juices, nature's finest ingredients, Joe Cross, his health and life was transformed. And this is what he did. He eliminated so much excess weight. He eliminated 67 pounds, which is 30 kgs. His cholesterol dropped from 204 to 135, and his LDL cholesterol went from 132 to 86. So he eliminated 109 kgs in total. Okay, so that was fat, sick, and nearly dead. Sorry, one moment. I hope this, my computer is going down. All right, I'm just going to share with you two people who came on the Restore to Health program. This is Amanda. This is Amanda's story. She came on the program. She came on the program November 2020. And she attended a caring church, and she was an active member. She became a Sabbath school teacher. She was skilled. She was knowledgeable about Bible prophecy. Despite all this, she had never heard the health message. But when we came to her church, we talked about Manor House. She came on the program. And she attended the 10-day program. She graduated. This is her graduation ceremony. And this is her now. Yeah. Okay. So this is what she said. The change came when I changed completely to plant-based. And what she decided to do, there's 5 types of fastings that you can do. She went on 1 meal a day for a prolonged time. And she said it cannot happen through a 10-day course. God and the spirit of prophecy must give the credit. Only when all the health laws are active and working together will it be successful. So lives are being transformed when they follow God's plan for perfect health. So Amanda is a living testimony. Now we have Donna. This is Donna here. This is a photo taken in April 2021. And that was just last year. She came to a Restore to Health residential program, and that was on the 19th to 29th of September. And that was the last program before we went away to Jamaica. So it was just last year. When Donna came, she had high blood pressure. She had a high level visceral fat of 14. The healthy range is between 5 to 8. She had diabetes. She was on an insulin type injection, and she had other health issues as well. I saw Donna, she's on the platform, and she may want to talk a little bit more. It's entirely up to her. But this was really getting her down, you know, having to inject herself. And she had extensive, painful bruising. She had faith, though. Yes, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, she had faith to make that step to seek God's way. She had tried allopathic medicine, but rather than her condition getting better, it was getting worse. So now she decided to try God's way. Look at her there. She could be my biological sister. When we see ourselves standing next to each other, we look very similar. And like me, she was a registered nurse, and like me, she was a registered health visitor. And that was Donna 4 months ago. This is Donna now. A photo taken in December 21, 3 months post program. And this is her testimony. And she said, I started the program wondering if it was really going to work for me with my various ailments and conditions. I completed a 10-day health restoration program, and I can testify that it really does work. I have eliminated weight, reversed my diabetes, and continue to experience a beneficial balance of a plant-based diet, exercise, and rest. It's the best investment I have made in my health. And I know that as I continue to trust that faith bit in God, whilst on my journey of restorative health, I will succeed in attaining the program that God wants for me, wants me to achieve, to fulfill his plan and purpose to my life. She goes on to say, thank you to all the staff at Manor House. May God continue to bless your ministry as you continue the work of the right hand of the gospel. And she concludes and says, the program really does work. Lives are being transformed when they follow God's plan for perfect health. You have Pastor Davis, you have Amanda, you have Donna, and so many others who have come through these doors are living testimony of God's power to transform their health and life. The Bible tells us in John 3, 2 John 1, 2, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayst prosper and be in health, even as your soul prosper. Coming to the way, and bear with me just a bit longer. So the challenge is a challenge. So at Manor House, there are some of, we do a number of checks on our health scares. We do our weight, we do the BMI, we do body fat, visceral fat, we do fat-free body weight, we do subcutaneous fat, we do body water percentage, we do skeletal muscle, we do muscle mass, bone mass, and basal metabolic rate calorie. But the challenge for you today or this week going forward is to know your body mass index. Know what it is, or your waist to hip circumference. So all you need for that is a tape measure, and you find the smallest part of your waist and you take that measurement in centimeters, and the largest part of your hip and you take that measurement in centimeters, and then you put it, just find the app. There's so many different apps on the computer. Put your details within the computer, and it will tell you your risk of cardiovascular disease. I did mine today, and it said to me that I'm a pear. So I've got a small waist. I'm a pear shape, yes. So there's another one that you can do. You can do your BMI, your waist to hip circumference, your body fat, and one that's really important, if you can do it, your visceral fat, or you can do all of them. Plot them on the chart to establish your starting point. If it's considered normal, then great. All right. So if you're slim, still do your visceral fat, because you may have fat surrounding your abdomen. So plot it on a chart, and if it's visceral, then great. Try and keep it at that level. If it's high, then develop a protocol with either Manor House or another medical missionary to restore it to the healthy range. Yes, so you now know what the fat controller is, don't you? Yes? Okay, you now know what it is, but you can change that. The power is within your hands. Either you can choose to let it control you, or you can choose to be controlled by it. The choice is yours. And so if you are struggling and you've tried to eliminate weight in the fast, there are the residential programs. We're starting the residential programs again. The first one is March 6th to the 16th. That's next month. Yes, it's a 10-day program. It's a program that Amanda and Donna went on. Or the next one after that is April the 3rd to 13th. So there's opportunities now to reserve your place on these programs and transform your life and eliminate excess weight and no longer let the fat control you. So thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it back over to Sharon and Shirley.
Oops, that's not a good angle. Thank you so much, Lucille. Thank you so much. And as you've seen, we have a challenge again, and I will be taking you up on the challenge.
Sharon, I'm just going for a little break and I'll come back, okay?
Okay, thank you. You deserve it. Right, so yes, I will be taking Lucille up on that challenge, and you can ask me, viewers, if I've done it the next time you see me on here, or any one of the team. I'm going to challenge the team as well. So thank you so much for that presentation. Now, I know there have been some questions in the chat, and we will do our best to look through the questions, and some have been answered as we've been going along. Sorry, there's a bit of echo. I'm not sure why. I know there's a few devices on in my house. So Shirlene, I'll let you talk while we sort out this echo. Actually, I think it was coming from your device. Yeah. So, and we've got some viewers on YouTube as well. I'm not sure if we've got any questions on this, so I'll have a quick look. And Shirlene, if you can read out some of the questions which have been answered as well. And you can read out the answers for those who haven't had access to the chat.
Okay, Sharon, let me have a look. I'll go from the bottom because I saw that one pop up and I don't know if I've missed it. I think it was Juliet that mentioned it. How do you check the visceral fat? Hi, Lucy, you're back.
I'm back, yes.
You're back. There is a question from Jay Miller. Juliet, how do we take our visceral fat?
So the visceral fat is a bit harder to take. You need a piece of equipment to do it. Some scales can do it. Some of the modern electronic scales can do the visceral fat. At Manor House, we have specific equipment that does take that information. But you can also purchase some scales.
Okay, thank you, Lucille. So I think the shops will be the online shops, or go to Manor House if you're here in the UK. I don't think there's many questions on the on Zoom. I don't know if anyone would like to. I can unmute. If you would like to say anything, have a question, please raise your hand. As I can't see any I don't think there's any on Zoom.
I've not seen any on YouTube. On here, we've just had a few people asking about where is Manor House, what is Manor House, and they have been answered in the chat with email addresses. But not everybody has access to the chat, especially our brothers and sisters.
Can you please put the address up again for Manor House, because I missed that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we can just vocalize what the email, not the email, the website. So I don't want to say it wrong. So there we go. It's Manor House. So it's www.manorhousehealth.co.uk. So it's located in the United Kingdom, and it is in Staffordshire, a lovely part of the country.
Mm-hmm. There is a question actually. What's the name of the 2 books from the last slide that I saw? I don't know if anyone's answered it. I'm trying to scroll, but what is the name of the book?
So the books I mentioned is the Mind Over Desire program. Yes, and we have those books available. And the other book is The Power of Hope. The Power of Hope, and that's freely available online. So if you do a search, you can get a PDF off that book, and it's by Julian Melgosa and Boges.
Thank you, Lucille.
And thank you, Colin, for those comments you've put in on how to measure, ways to calculate your waist to hip ratio. And we had a question from Veronica earlier on with regards to the oil that let's see. There's a couple of questions. So the first one was to do with one of the oils.
I think it's a canola.
Yeah, canola. And she says, I have liquid and solid versions of coconut oils. Are the plant-based oils like safflower, avocado, etc., made to be saturated? Does that make, can you understand?
Lucille, you're on mute, Lucille.
Sorry about it. The simple test is if it remains liquid at room temperature, then it's more likely to be unsaturated. So if it goes hard at room temperature, like the coconut oil, then it's more likely to be saturated. So coconut oil, palm oil, those are the 2 ones that tend to be saturated. I know there's this big fad at the moment to have pure virgin coconut oil, but God really designed it that we should be eating our oil in the form that it came. So for instance, when we look at an almond nut or walnut, they're in a hard case. And in order to get that nut out of its case, you have to get another implement to crack it to take it out. And by the time you've taken 1 or 2, you're fed up and you will only eat 1 or 2 of those nuts. But because we are living in a country where we can buy them in bags full, we eat too much of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So the question was, I understand that canola oil is GMO and should be removed altogether. What's your take on that one, Lucille?
I don't know anything about whether it's GMO or not. I don't know where it comes from at all. Which one? Sapphire oil?
No, canola.
I don't know. I can't comment on that at all.
But the thing that you said, the take-home message though, is to get the oils in its natural state. So if you know it's GMO, then that's not natural.
Because we're talking about excess weight. We're talking about people with a BMI over 30. Now, if your weight is normal, or if you're underweight, then you'll be wanting to add liquid oils to your foods to increase the calorie content of it, because your stomach is only a certain size, and fats has high amount of calories per weight, per volume. So you'll be taking those oils, and also you're taking the liquid oils in the form of medicine as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Before anyone unmutes with a question, I just had a comment to make. You know, you were talking about the children tests that were done like in year 1 and I think it was year 6 to assess body fat, so whether or not the children are obese or whatever, or in a healthy range. I remember a friend of mine was really surprised when the results came back to say her daughter was overweight. And some people say it can be quite damaging on a child so young to get those kind of results, or even on the parent to hear that their child, who looks fine, well, in their eyes, they look fine. Where do the children's assessments look at visceral fat?
It doesn't. It's just BMI it looks at.
Right.
You know, because I've been involved in some of those children assessments when I went to the 4 to 5 year old children. When I was a health visitor, I went as a school nurse, and it's just the BMI they're looking at. There's a different group of tests that are done with that National Child Measurement Program. So that's a different group, a smaller group of children that they are measuring. Yeah, but I think it's a healthy tool for parents to know and to stop and think how they're feeding their children.
So what do you suggest? So I just want to say, what do you suggest when parents hear this news and are a bit disheartened and perhaps feel that if they talk too much about weight on their child, they may end up, with their child going the other way? And
well, it's not about the child, really. It's about the family. It's about who's cooking the food, who's preparing the food, really. So it's a whole family approach that we should be looking at. You know, there's a research that was done around, I think it was around the Second World War, where they looked at 300 soldiers, and most of these soldiers were young and they died. They were killed in action. So, 18, 19, 20s, very few of them were over 30s, but when they did post-mortems on these children, these young men, they found early stages cardiovascular disease. And these are supposed to be young, fit, healthy men. So, if someone said, look, I haven't got scales at home, so I'm not able to measure I grew up without scales, so I didn't know how much I weighed. And if someone said to, my parents, look, your child's a bit overweight, you need to do something about it, I would embrace it. And I think, you know what, I need to start looking at the whole way I'm feeding my family.
Yeah. It can be a bit of a wake-up call for some, and others may go back to sleep and say, look, you're trying to, because they don't necessarily see the effects, the long-term effects. But it's very good that you've been bringing this to our attention, and I hope that somebody will benefit, even if it's one person, but I'm sure more than one will. So are we able to take hands if anybody's got any questions now? We'll take you in the order that your hands appear, and we'll be looking out on YouTube as well for any questions, if anyone wants to type it in the chat or come over to Zoom. There's space.
There is one. No, there's a couple. There is one that says, I can't. It's from Jay Miller. Can high fat levels affect metabolic rate?
In fact, it's called the metabolic syndrome. That's what they call it, the metabolic syndrome. So it's all related. Yes. So, when they talk about metabolic syndrome, there are certain things that go with it, visceral fat, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and hypertension. And those are just the basic ones they mentioned. So it all is linked together. High fat and metabolic works both synonymous. They're synonymous.
Thank you, Lucille. And another one is, you mentioned the 3 vital areas for health, and you mentioned circulation. Someone's asking, what were the other 2?
So in order to have perfect health, there's 3 things that you require. You need to have perfect circulation. You need temperance. That's the second one. And in fact, we're talking about true temperance, avoiding everything that is harmful and using that which is helpful very carefully and wisely. And the third area is emotional aspect, which is the love, joy, and hope. And that's about relationships with each other, with you and me, and relationship with God.
Thank you, Lucille. So we have a hand up, Audrey. I think you can unmute. Yes, you can.
State the fact that canola oil, 90% of it is GMO. 90% of all the canola oil made in America is genetic.
Sorry, Audrey, we can't hear you. It sounds like you're traveling or on a walk. If you're on a walk, that's great, but we're struggling to hear you. All I can hear is the word canola oil, GMO, and something percent.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay. Just to say that 90% of all the canola oil that is made in America is genetically modified. Now, ideally, any oil that is organic should not be genetically modified. If you get organic canola oil, it should not be, but we don't know. All I know is that 90% of the oil that is canola and made in America is genetically modified.
Thank you. That clears it up because the person that asked the question is based in America, so perhaps that may deal with the question. I have my hand up because I'm asking a question on behalf of somebody who sent a message in the chat. And this person says, there is such a growing range of literature on plant-based foods. Okay, is there any recommendation of books with recipes, and how should this transition be managed? I would also add to that, there's a big growing range of fast food, plant-based food as well. If you look at some of the high street fast food outlets, they've jumped on this vegan train, if you want to call it that, and they're putting in, but it's not necessarily healthy recipes there. So they're looking, this person is asking about books, any recommended books?
Very good question. You know, when we recommend plant-based foods, we often don't talk about how to cook those foods. And often the feedback from some of our health guests, we want more cooking demonstrations. Now, the book that we do recommend is by Dr. McGregor, and it's called How Not to Die Cookbook. How Not to Die Cookbook. And it's available on Amazon, and it's evidence-based. So it's the recipes that they recommend is based on research of what is very good for your health and is effective for good health. So the book that we recommend is How Not to Die by Dr. McGregor, and it's available on Amazon. And I haven't got shares in it either.
I like the way you put on that Scottish accent, as you said, McGregor. I'm not going to try. There was a comment about the BMI calculations. Someone was asking, and I've seen your hand, Jean, someone was asking, is it the same for men as for women? Because I noticed when you put the slide up earlier, you showed a healthy BMI and then, you know, normal, underweight, too low and too high. I can't remember the exact terminology you used. And it didn't specify whether it was the values for men or for women. So this person's asking, are they the same levels?
Can I reiterate that, please?
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
What I was asking is because I'm a trainer myself. Basically, they said when you measure BMI, it's not the same for a woman as it is for the man, because the man has muscles. But I can't remember why in my studies why that was. So I mean, I was just trying to see if you guys knew anything about that. If when you're measuring and calculating BMI, do you go about it the same way with women as you are doing it?
So in terms of BMI, I don't do the actual calculations myself. I let the machine does the calculation. That's what we do. Or I put the information into a software and it does that. And obviously when we use the tool, we use the NHS one, it says whether the person is male or female. obviously, because a woman has different ratio of fat and muscle mass to a man. So I don't do the actual calculation, I let the machine does it, but it does, you have to acknowledge how tall they are, their weight, and their sex as well. Yes.
Okay, thanks for confirming that.
Thank you, brother. What's your name? Oh, Christopher. Oh, I think I know you from when you was a little. Balham. But anyway.
Yeah, from Balham Church, yes.
Yeah, I remember the name. Okay, from before you were born. But anyway, that's that's another issue. Okay, so Jean McCleary, you have a hand. Sorry, this is like a place where we reunite on this platform. So welcome, Christopher, to TTI. Nice to have you on here.
Thank you.
Jean McCleary, you have a hand? Well, you have two, hopefully, but there's one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very interested in the Joe Cross one because my brother has the same issue with chronic urticaria. Recently, he's been, he's not overweight. He's not an overweight person, but he's had a number of medication which has not worked. He's currently in Jamaica. And he's been looking at different things and taking herbal, teas and so on. And at the moment, he, yesterday he said that was the first day he's gone without any hives, any itching at all. He's been eliminating different types of foods. So what I would really like to know a little bit more about the Joe Cross and juices, because what my brother has discovered as well in some research is that any foods that are high in histamine does affect the urticaria. So he's been eliminating stuff like avocado is high in histamine, spinach is high in histamine, and some citrus fruits. So I just really would be interested to know a little bit more about the Joe Cross and his juices, and if that was, that had helped not only for the weight loss, but his urticaria.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a type of documentary that Joe Cross did, and it's freely available on YouTube. It's about nearly 2 hours long. It's a video that we share with our health guests on the program. And the video is called, have you got pen?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
Yes, and Joe Cross, and it shows not just him who had the urticaria, but also another gentleman had the same condition as he had, and he was much larger than Joe Cross, and he followed the juicing. And he eliminated the excess fat, but also his health condition improved significantly to the point that he was able to come off all his medication. And the fact of the matter is that juicing on green juices is excellent for recovery of many diseases. It's a kind of fasting that we can do for a period of time, but oftentimes it has to be done under supervision, especially if you have certain health conditions as well. But yeah, Joe Cross, his documentary is called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will be contacting you soon because I myself need to go on one of your program. I've recently been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I'm resistant to taking any medication. I just want to use natural options.
Yes, we've had many people who've come on the program who have been type 2 diabetes. Those people have been insulin dependent, and they've left without the insulin, and they reverse their diabetes. This is a lifestyle condition that requires lifestyle changes. And many of us just do not know what we need to do in order to reverse it. And we're here to help. Yeah, Donna has a hand.
I think this is another name that I recognize, Donna Hilton. Maybe, maybe not. But yes, Donna, go ahead, please.
Thanks for the program, Lucille. It's excellent. And maybe you recognize the name because I was one of the participants at Manor House, the program. Okay. But in answer to Jean McCleary's question, I would 100% recommend a program at Manor House, because since my attendance there, I've recently had some blood results, and I can say that my diabetes has been reversed, and some other health issues that I had as well have also been reversed. So this is an extremely well worth investment in your health. And also it does take a lot of determination, and as Lucille mentioned before, a lot of faith to go ahead and complete the program and to continue the program when you get home. So it's just my recommendation, yes.
Thank you very much. I intend to do that. And I did say to my GP that I'd like another 3 months before I consider any medication, which she did kind of reluctantly agree with me. But unfortunately, I'm going to be going off to Gambia at the end of the month for a 7-day trip. And so I wouldn't like to take on anything until I come back.
You'll be back.
Yes.
Okay, Jean. And may I add, Donna, congratulations for the step that you have made, and to God be the glory. Definitely. I'm so pleased for you, and the other two who agreed to have their stories shared on here. So thank you so much.
Thank
you. God be praised.
Praise God. Thank you
for being willing to come on here and share your story. Now, if there's anybody who does contact Manor House as a result of the True Temperance International Family Health Show, coming on here and seeing the presentations, or just ask if you just mention TTI when you go along, and let's Lucille and Arthur or whoever takes your registration know that you saw them on here. I would appreciate that. Thank you. Now, there was another hand, but it's disappeared. Charlene, do you see any more questions in the chat? We'll take maybe one more question and then we'll wrap up for today.
I don't think so. I know quite a few of them are with regard to statements and so forth, but not as questions that I can see.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I think Veronica's got, it's a theory of taking your weight and dividing it in half to know the number of ounces to consume is, sorry, my cursor's going a bit funny. Can you see it, Sharon?
Not sure, but Dell has his hand. I'll have a look. Or her hand. Dell, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, then we'll have a look at this the query.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. And it was a really great presentation. And my question is, how do you help someone that's got diabetes as well as neuro brain blockage, as well as high body mass loss? How do you help someone with diabetes increase their body muscle mass as well as weight?
And what one of the things I don't do, is it Dale?
Yes.
Yeah, Dale, one of the things I don't do from an ethical point of view is take any of those type of personal health situations and respond to them on this type of platform. I won't do that. It would require an individual assessment because each one of us are unique and different, and we've had different experiences and different influences in our lives, and each one would need to be assessed individually. And so I won't be able to take that question on this platform.
Okay.
But you're more than welcome, you know, to come to Manor House or see any of the other medical missionaries on this platform for a health consultation.
Okay. Thanks very
Okay.
much.
You're welcome, Dale.
So thank you for unmuting, Dale, and asking your question. But we highly support what Lucille was just saying. The personal consultations are just that, they are personal. So we wouldn't want to answer anything like that online, live online, because remember, this is going all over.
Yeah.
And you need a more in-depth assessment rather than just a question. But we appreciate your concerns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sharon, I just remember that I offered to give a ministry of healing to the first person who recognized that wonderful gentleman on on that slide who transformed himself.
He has.
Such a young, dapper man. And I'm just looking through the chat. It was Rob. So is it possible for Rob to give you his address and you can give it to me? And I'll post it first class Monday morning to Rob. And if he's got the Ministry of Healing already, if he could give it to somebody who would benefit from it.
Absolutely. So Rob, you can see my contact, my name is there, Sharon Wallace. I think it says Sharon Wallace phone. I don't know what it says by my name. Sharon, just as Sharon Wallace, I think, maybe TTI, I'm not sure. But if you can send me a message directly to me, let me just get it right, who I am. It just says Sharon Wallace and hyphen, and I can't see the rest. So send me your phone number and we can liaise that way and get your details. And the question that Veronica posted was regards to the amount of water that should be consumed. Now, I know there's various methods to calculate the exact amount of water that you need to consume. And bear in mind, when you do these calculations, that you need to factor into the account your age, your activity levels, your weight, and the climate where you live. You know, so if you live in a really sunny climate, the water you should be drinking would be more than somebody who lives in a cold climate, because they'll be sweating less. So you'll be sweating more, eliminating more water. At that point, Lucille takes some and I need to go have another gulp. So I would like to thank you, Lucille, for coming on and revealing to many what the fat controller is. It's more than just, he's a really useful engine, we know. Okay, that's one of the theme tunes from Thomas the Tank Engine, where the fat controller is known. But we know that really the control of the fat is in our hands. It's in the choices that we make. It's in the consumption of water, food, the amount we take, the exercise, the fresh air, applying the health principles, whether you want to call them restoration or new start, but applying what you know, and you will be in good hands, because these laws have come to us from God himself, and you will see them there in the books in Genesis, you'll see them in the spirit of prophecy, you'll see them in Daniel, in so many books of the Bible, you will see the application of health. So I don't know if there's another closing thought from anybody, or are we going to go through the promo slides again, Shirley? Right, there was one hand, but it's gone now. So she would have been our last question. Oh, Ika Powell. Okay, this is definitely the last question now, because it's 17:24 by my clock.
All right, okay. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask this question. I just want, you know, you said one thing about the the exercising after a meal, does that mean it's best not to exercise first thing in the morning?
It depends on, sorry, I'll let Lucille answer the question. Because it was.
Well, there's nothing wrong with exercising in the morning, but we're talking about fat elimination. That's what we're talking about, excess fat elimination. And some of the things that will help excess fat elimination is that digestive walk, a minimum of 15 minutes after the meal. But yeah, if you want to exercise in the morning, you want to exercise in the evening, go for it. Yeah, it's good.
the more the better. The temperance with all things. However, there is one bonus of exercising before you eat, is that you're going to be burning more fat, because the effects of the exercise lasts a lot longer when you're burning fat, as opposed to going with the aerobic exercise. So you'd be surprised. You can do that and then have your breakfast and you'll still be burning fat. I know that sounds a little confusing, but it's something that I have read and put into practice. And I'm not going to show you how slim I look, because that's just not going to necessarily encourage anybody. But it is something that I put into practice, and I do love my walk. So whether you're going to walk after your meal or before your breakfast, just make sure you get those walks in. And if you do have a lunchtime, that tends to be more of the heavier meal rather than in the evening. If you do go for third meals, then you really want to build in that walk. You really do. So yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes, Christopher.
If you have a heavy meal just before just before exercising, it stops the digestion process, and that causes toxins in the body as well. So if you say, for instance, if you have a heavy breakfast and then you went and exercised, maybe straight after that, it stops the digestion process.
Okay, so but when I said heavy, I probably should have said the heaviest. I'm not saying we should overeat, because we should be temperate in what we do. So just because somebody offers seconds doesn't mean that we have to take it. I don't know if Lucille has any comments on that, though, on Christopher's.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about a heavy burn in the gym and lifting weights and, running a marathon and things like that. I said a digestive walk. Yes. And it's just a brisk walk, you're just slightly out of breath, head up, breathing in deeply, enjoying the nature around you. That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And I saw your comments, Vanessa. Veronica, yes, I agree. We need to relax before bed, not get everything. Okay, so Charlene, is there anything that you wanted to add, or was you going to show the promo slides? Are you there? Okay, Charlene's gone quiet. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining us on the True Temperance International Family Health Show. Thank you, Lucille, for your presentation on the Fat Controller. Next week, we have Dr. Louisa. She will be presenting on, and I don't have the poster to share with you at the moment, but you will get the poster in the groups if you have joined. And if you haven't, and it's your first time, it's the same contact details, the same Zoom details. So we look forward to seeing you again. And please invite your friends, your family, anybody you know, anybody you think will benefit. And if they've missed it, because today's was so informative, as they always are, remember, we have recorded this live on YouTube, so you will be free to access the information that will be available at a time suitable to you. So if we're not going to run the promo slides, it's there at the beginning, so you'll be able to see it on the YouTube video. So it's YouTube True Temperance International. And if you get on there now, it will be the live one. Okay. So God bless you all. And we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we are going to end our YouTube live broadcast, and I'll await that message from Rob. Okay, so God bless you all, and we so
Just
that he can
for such
get
a,
his free gift.
you know, so many diseases in relation to
Oh,
weight. Thank you so much. Very good.
you're
God
most welcome. Thank you, Audrey, for coming on and you're supporting us. And Robert, yes, I've got your details. Thank you so much. Lovely. So let's see where we are. We're still live. And I am going to ask Shirlene or Jonathan if they can end it. So I'll just say bye, everyone. And those of you who are still on Zoom, you can stay on